Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this online course, Church Leadership and Administration. We're so glad that you're with us this semester. We believe we're going to have a great time, and we actually have a course that's designed for you that we believe is going to be more than just academic credit, but it's actually going to help you in your ministry, and it's going to give you some skills and some foundations that you need to move forward in a healthy and a successful way. My name is Dr. Adam Hughes, and I primarily teach pastoral ministry, preaching, and the leadership component of this course. And in just a moment, I'm going to introduce you to the colleagues that are with me. I also am one of the authors of the textbook that you will use for this course, the textbook, Together We Lead. One of the things that we want to do today is we want to give you an overview in this introduction so that you know what's coming. But we also want to give you some tips that will help you navigate this course and just in an online format be successful this semester. But before we do that, let me just kind of go down the aisle here to let you know everyone that's with us today. On my immediate left is Dr. Mark Johnson. Dr. Johnson, would you just say a word about yourself so that everyone knows who's with them today?
Absolutely. Mark Johnson is my name. Honored to be here with you all. Listen, I teach evangelism, church ministry, leadership, and administration, all these courses. So we're doing a wonderful job of just being here together in order to bring this to you. So we're thankful for that.
And then right on the other side of Dr. Johnson is Dr. Joe Scherer. Dr. Scherer, would you say just a word about yourself so the students know who you are as well?
Thank you. Delighted to be here. My world has been kind of planted in two worlds. For over 20 years, I've been a professor here at New Orleans Seminary in discipleship and ministry leadership. At the same time, I have extensive experience in the local church, denominational leadership, and things like that. So my life for a lot of years has really been leadership and administration. Delighted to get to share this time with you.
And then on the other side of Dr. Scherer is my colleague, Dr. Jody Dean, and he is the other author, the co-author of the textbook you'll be using, or one of the textbooks you'll be using. Dr. Dean, would you say just a word about yourself as well?
I'm Jody. My wife, Emily, and I are on faculty, and we get to teach across the spectrum. My life has been in the executive pastor space, the associate pastor space. So I bring that aspect of how do you manage the volunteers, and when will you ever get enough volunteers, or deal with facilities or finances or any of those aspects. But my passion, though, is how do you use all those to get us to a place of discipleship, of actually reaching and making disciples. And so managing the details so that we may reach more. And so as we unpack that a little bit, that's where my life has been. I do a lot of consulting and interim work as well as being on the full-time faculty here, and 20 years in the local church before all that. So it's just been a fun merging of the church with academics, and I hope you enjoyed this course, and I hope you download everything so you can refer to it at later times in your ministry when you need it.
So with that in mind, one of the things we want to do today, we do want to overview the course just so you have an idea and can anticipate what's coming and how you can plan to move forward. But before we talk about perhaps what's coming in the course or the what of the course, maybe the why of the course would be a good place to start. I don't mean to discourage you, but I believe the thing that I would say to you right out of the gate is this: leading is hard. Leading well is even more difficult, and if that weren't the case, then everyone would be a good leader, and we just know that that's not the case. And we could even shift to the managing side of things, and we can say managing volunteers, as Dr. Dean was just talking about, and finances and facilities in ministry is challenging by itself without any extenuating circumstances. But then you add to all of these responsibilities the constantly changing ministry culture that we find ourselves in, and these tasks and these responsibilities even become more daunting. So with all of that in mind, this course is designed to help you. It's designed to help you understand leadership and to understand a ministry model that integrates biblical standards for leadership while managing the overall work of ministry. So what we want to do is each week we're going to look together, and as we look together, you're going to discover units such as leadership foundations and standards, ministering to the people, management foundations, organizing ministry, facilitating change, because gentlemen, we all know everyone likes that, and that's really easy, isn't it? And then assessing the ministry. A lot of people, and Dr. Dean will get into this, a lot of people sometimes we think about the plan for ministry, but then we don't come back and actually realize, did it work, and do we need to make any adjustments to it? And here's another fun one that might even make you cringe when I say it, but it is so important for navigating your ministry context well, and that's conflict management. And then we're also going to, as we think about the world we find ourselves in, that this seems to become ever increasingly an issue, managing risk, doing risk management. With all of that being the case, one of the things that I think makes the design of this course so unique, and one of the things that makes this course unique from the standpoint of you're in seminary because you've experienced some type of call, we think about because of the unique nature of your leadership in this course, we'll actually begin by considering your ministry calling in the next unit. With all that in mind, we just want to kind of run down the line here and talk about what you can think about as you put your mind around this course. So let me begin with kicking it off here to Dr. Johnson and just saying, Dr. Johnson, would you talk to us a little bit about the unique nature of every church?
Yeah, one of the things that you have to be careful of, particularly walking into this course, is that you have to realize that every context is different. Now, I know that's supposed to be a no-brainer, but when you think about, being a sports guy, playing professional sports and being in ministry for over 27 years now, context matters. We called it in this professional sports a copycat league, which means you're doing whatever someone else has been successful doing. Well, that doesn't necessarily translate to all ministry contexts. And so when you think about what ministry means and the context that you have to be mindful of, it's really important to gather the material and then take it to the Lord and really begin to implement that with your team and your staff. So it can be challenging as you're starting to walk in ministry to be able to understand the context by which you're in. Give you a prime example. As an African-American pastor, I've pastored African-American churches. Well, I was dumped into an all-white setting now. So I go from pastoring an African-American church to now I'm into a white multicultural setting. Some of the tools that I used in the African-American context did not translate over in that multicultural context. Well, I have to be aware of that. Despite all the success that I've had in my other contexts, I still must be mindful. Why? Because we're trying to do one thing and one thing alone, lead people to the throne room of Christ. That's all we want to do in our efforts, in our words, and in our deeds. We want to lead people to Christ. And sometimes, if you're in a different context, you might be pulling them away, even though you're doing a great thing. So how do you manage all of the information that you'll get from this course? How do you manage all the information that you've learned as experience and still be mindful of this context that you have to be a part of as you start to move with Christ? So it is easy. Wait and work. That's what I say all the time. You wait, you're patient, waiting, and then you just work. You work what God has called you to do, and in the end, you'll see the dynamics of the two come together and build the kind of unity in the body of Christ so that it can go out and bless the kingdom of God and the lives of other people as well. So context matters, and those are some of the things that we'll think about as we walk through this entire semester together.
Dr. Johnson, that's so helpful. Thank you so much for helping us think about contextualization as it relates to leadership and administration. Dr. Sharon, Dr. Dean, though, as we think about the course, really, even in the title, there's two components to this. There's what leadership is and there's what administration is. So Dr. Sharon, would you take just a moment and talk about, from your perspective, what leadership indeed is?
Well, very much. Church leadership and administration, the context of the local church is incredibly important. But we want to kind of do these twin pillars of leadership and administration. So let's think about what leadership is. The fact is there are literally hundreds of definitions of what leadership is. Probably the simplest of those is leadership as influence. But that type of simple definition leaves me wanting more. And in this course specifically, I want more, because in this specific foundational course of seminary teaching training, we want to think about the context of the local church, different as it may be. Now, there'll be some of you that are not involved in a local church. You're in some other type of Christian ministry, and that's great. That's going to work out well. But essentially, we're going to be focusing on local church leadership and administration. And specifically the leadership that we're thinking about, we want to be sure that it's Christian leadership. Sure, good leadership principles are good leadership principles, but let's be sure they have a foundational side that's rooted in biblical Christian theology and foundations. Henry Blackaby wrote a book, Spiritual Leadership, several years ago, and the definition he used for leadership was simply moving people onto God's agenda. Well, that really captures a lot of what we're talking about in Christian leadership. As we think about moving, there is an action, there is a response that leadership is. It is not a manipulation of a bunch of things and programs and events. It's the people, okay? But ultimately, it's about God's agenda. And so with that type of leadership foundation, Dr. Dean and Dr. Hughes have built upon that as they begin to develop their book, Together We Lead. And in the textbook, you're going to find a definition that they use for leadership, where they say that biblical leadership includes the process of finding God's goal for a specific group of people, instilling that goal in them, equipping them to grow in Christ likeness and to fulfill the goal, and then empowering them to serve God's eternal kingdom along with you. I think you see that Blackaby's definition and the Together We Lead definition have many, many similarities, because after all, we're talking about God's people, God's agenda, and God's result. When I think about leadership, if I could just capsulize it in just 3 short phrases, really what I want to do as a Christian leader is I want to set strategic direction with mission and vision. You say, well, whose mission and vision? Well, obviously, God's vision and mission for our church. But I'm called to set that direction, not in an abusive sort of way, not in a manipulative way, but properly to set that direction under God's leadership. Second of all, I have to mobilize the people, and not simply mobilize them, but I need to energize them. Need to help them with empowering ways to accomplish that vision that God has for our church. And then part of my job, which really kind of bumps up a little bit, Dr. Dean, on administrative types of things, is I've got to secure and align the resources necessary to accomplish that mission and vision. So leadership is a lot of things, but we'll be taking that pillar and we'll join it together with the other pillar of the course of administration. And Dr. Hughes, we're going to be able to have a fantastic course together.
Thank you so much, Dr. Scher. That is all very, very helpful, and we look forward to delving into that a little bit more as we move along throughout the semester. Well, Dr. Dean, I think he has set you up well, because the other pillar in this course is indeed the administration side to be successful in ministry. So would you take just a moment and share with us your perspective on what administration is and how it's important and plays into all of this?
Well, one of my favorite verses that my pastor mentor instilled in me was 1 Corinthians 15:58. Be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain. Just take that last phrase, labor is not in vain. When you start thinking about administration, I think some people have a negative thought toward administration because it's work. It's difficult. But I would encourage you, you're in an online course, to take out maybe an iPad and your Apple Pencil. Maybe you are old school with just a note paper and pen, but it would help you as you watch these videos to actually write your own notes. And so I've been writing notes as my colleagues even shared things in this. And I've taught this class over 50 times, but I'm still taking notes and I'm still learning. And so my hope for you this semester is you would take your own notes. Maybe it's download the PowerPoint or whatever, but you're going to want to write down this definition for administration. Every week in the local church, we have things that come up that are unexpected. Every week we have drop-by company that comes into our office and blows our work productivity for the day because we just didn't have that 30 minutes in our window between counseling appointments or planning the next event or working toward what we're teaching or preaching next. And so administration is going to try to help you with your productivity pieces, with your finance pieces, facility pieces, but putting a big umbrella definition on that is pretty helpful for all of us, because you got to work within an organizational structure. And every church's organizational structure is different. I've worked in 7 First Baptist churches over the past decades. When I first started out in ministry, it was a First Baptist church of less than 100. Not all First Baptist churches are large. And then I've been able to serve in some larger churches. I've consulted as an interim in a minister in 3 First Baptist churches. And so it's helped develop this definition. It's simply this. Administration is developing and working within an organizational structure that shepherds the overall work of volunteers, staff, facilities, and finances. So as you think about that, what I would encourage you to write down as you're making a few notes about administration is there's always going to be a staff need. Whether it's somebody letting you know they're out this week because they're at mom's house, or they went to see grandma, or the fact that they are sick, or the fact they got called into work, there's always going to be a staff need. In the churches I've served, there's usually been a staff member getting ready to update their resume or a void in which we were trying to fill. Now, it may have been a custodian, it may have been an administrative assistant, it may have been a ministerial position, but there's usually some churn even among the staff. And facilities, there's always a need in which you and I do we need to replace the roof? When do we update the carpet? Did you know Walmart has a 12-year plan for their facilities? It's just embedded. Walgreens has a plan for their facilities. McDonald's has a plan for their franchises. Every business looks at facilities and has a plan. Most churches don't have that plan. They've not looked at when do we update the carpet, when do we paint, when do we do the roof, and those kind of things. And even finances. As we look at over $7 trillion will pass from one generation to the next through estates in the next decade. It's important for the church to think about stewardship, to think about how do we meet our budget and where are we weak and where could we be stronger, but really challenging our people to love the Lord their God with all their heart, mind, and soul, using their time, talent, and treasure to do the things the Lord wants us to do. Then it's really easy if people would respond to that call for you and I to just shepherd them through the process, which would be ultimate administration. So think people, think the programs, think the processes, think property when you're thinking about administration, and you'll enjoy some of the units in this course that help you as a minister to try to unpack those at a level that will help you lead your people to what the Lord's called you to do through that vision and mission Dr. Scherer was talking about earlier. Dr. Hughes?
Thanks, colleagues. That's all very, very helpful information. To me, it's exciting. It gets me ready to roll now. Let's just go right into it, and let's go serve on a church staff together.
I think the four of us would be a pretty good team.
I think we'd be a pretty good team. We would overwhelm a congregation somewhere, but we'd probably be a pretty good team. So friends, I hope as you hear this, I guess there's two different perspectives you could take to this. This might be overwhelming to you, but our prayer is that it's not overwhelming, that it's exciting and it gets you anxious to delve further into the material. With that being said, here's how I would like to wrap up our introduction today. Understanding that this is an online course, that this is an online learning unit, there are some things that make it unique. Now, all of us would tell you here at New Orleans Seminary, we design online courses to mitigate the difference between you being in person and you being online. But just so you know, as you begin the semester, there's going to be a lot of the responsibility that falls on you. We want to help you to be as successful as you can. With that in mind, I just have 3 or 4 or 5 suggestions, some practical suggestions for the course as we move forward. Dr. Dean's already mentioned one of them. In some capacity, you're going to want to make sure that you take copious notes. Now, that might be on your iPad. That might mean you print out the PowerPoints that are provided for you in the unit. It might just mean that you go old school with pen and pad. But you're going to want to make sure that you're taking notes and able to retain this material for further use in your ministry in the future, because that's what this is designed for. With that in mind, let me just give you some other things that might help you be successful. And some of these might seem just pretty basic, but we just want you to know this is how you need to set your mindset to move forward, starting really in week 1. First thing I would tell you is familiarize yourself with navigating Blackboard and what you might find in this course, and specifically where all that data and where all that information is located. If you've not used Blackboard before, or if you're not familiar with it, you want to make sure you do know where you can find it, because every week new material is going to be coming through this platform. Second of all, I would encourage you to, again, this seems basic, review the course syllabus, paying special attention to assignment descriptions, course textbooks, and due dates. You want to, if you're going to be successful, map out ahead of time when things are going to be due so that you're not working on them last minute, so that you can design your schedule and you can meet those due dates ahead of time and make sure that everything falls into line the way it needs to. Thirdly, I would say make sure you know where important contact information, such as your professor's email, but also, since this is an online platform and delivery method, you're also going to make sure that you know how to get in touch with our ITC department. in case something maybe is not compatible between your computer and the server that you're getting information from, so that you make sure you can stay on top of things in the course. I would encourage you to know how to get in touch with ITC, and you should be able to find that information through the website, but also in the course syllabus. I would also say print out the course schedule and note due dates on your personal calendar, not just in the course syllabus. Don't just look at it one time and forget it, but print it out, mark those things, put it on your calendar, so again, you're making a plan that you're following throughout the semester. The final thing that I would say to you, and this is so important if you want to have the best learning experience that you can in an online course. It would be very easy just to say, you know what, ever so often I'm going to get on the course and I'm going to try to catch up with things, and you might could pass the course that way. But you're not going to experience the course that way, and you're not going to be able to receive all that we have designed for you. So we would tell you to plan to log in to Blackboard and into this specific course on a regular basis. Now you might say, what do you mean by a regular basis? Well, certainly one time a week at a very minimum, but I would say please plan to be active in the course at least 2 times every week during the semester. I would say plan to early in the semester, like on a Monday or Tuesday, log in, see what's there, see what's coming. But then on a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, maybe if you need the weekend, log back in. Do some extra work. If there's a discussion board, do that. Just make sure there's not new material being added and you're working on that and keeping your mind fresh on that. So with all that in mind, here are some practical suggestions that we hope help you succeed and do very well throughout the semester. Well, friends, let me just say to you again, we're excited that you're with us this semester. We look forward to moving forward together. We are already praying for you, and we are eagerly anticipating what God is going to do in your life personally, but also in your ministry throughout this semester. God bless you, and thank you so much for being with us.